Now joined by Karman Bokhari. He's the founding director for the Center for Global Policy. He joins me in Toronto today. So, Karman, you're hearing Mike Pompeo there saying that the president wanted to meet with them. He wanted to look them in the eye and sign off on this deal to make sure everything was taken care of properly. What is going through your head right now? I know a lot of people the alarm bells are going off, raising concerns that this meeting was going to be taking place in the United States at Camp David.
I think that, there's a bit of awkwardness given the timing around the anniversary of 9/11 attacks. But there is a reality on the ground, which is that if there is to be a negotiated settlement, then such meetings, whether they take place in Washington, Camp David, or somewhere else, they have to take place. And I think that it's not about President Trump. I think any president, even if it was Obama or if it was Hillary Clinton, they would be doing something similar, if not exactly the same. Now, obviously, the way that the president announces these things on Twitter has its shock value or adds to the shock value. And therefore, we come up with these awkward moments.
Do you think it's the right tactic on his part? I mean, as you say, I think we all do agree there has to be talks. Things need to be negotiated. There has to be something that is done. But is there a concern in terms of how it gets handled? We've got secret talks, and it becomes very, very public that these talks are going to be happening, and then they've been called off, for reasons, for the attack that happened in Kabul and an American soldier dying, 11 others also dying as well. Is there a bit of a concern, or things should be handled differently?
Absolutely. I've been very vocal in saying that these talks, the way they're going, are counterproductive. The Taliban are negotiating, unfortunately, from a position of relative strength, while the United States is negotiating from a position of relative weakness. The Taliban have no qualms about staging terrorist attacks while negotiating on the table. And I've been openly calling for counterstrikes, using American military to strike at Taliban to send them a message that, we're not negotiating from a position of relative weakness, and gain that leverage. And so I've been really worried about the way these negotiations have been going.
And this also happening as we know that the president pulling out a number of troops, U.S. troops from Afghanistan. We know that the talks are set to happen at some point. We understand, according to sources, that there are going to be rescheduling of talks. How do you anticipate that should unfold, that should be handled, so that there is some kind of forward movement?
So that's a great question, and it leads to my other point, which is that how do you actually verify that the Taliban will disassociate from transnational terrorist entities like Al-Qaeda and ISIS and others, and commit to that? I just recently wrote a large analysis for the Center for Global Policy, the think tank that I'm affiliated with, arguing that there's no way to verify that. And in fact, Taliban have no interest in disassociating from Al-Qaeda. In fact, they will continue to associate with Al-Qaeda. So that's a major problem. Unless that issue is somehow not resolved, these talks are not going anywhere.
I'm just about out of time, Karman, but I want to ask you one more quick question. When you talked about verifying, how do we verify that they are speaking to the right individuals here during these negotiations?
And that is the problem. In contrast with nuclear inspections, where inspectors from the IAEA, the UN nuclear watchdog, go into a country, have access to facilities, monitor what the activities that are going on there, and then can verify, say, hey, either there are violations or not. In this case, we don't even have a map of the Taliban. What does the Taliban look like from the inside? What does Al-Qaeda look like from the inside? Who are the people who are going to, how do we know that on the battlefield in different theaters inside the country, the Taliban are not continuing to work with Al-Qaeda and other such elements?
A very concerning situation. We'll keep a close eye on. Karman Bokhari, appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Always a pleasure.